everyone, welcome to Contact Lost, the Polish podcast about Warhammer 40k competitive scene and also about the international competitive scene. I am Tweak, your host, and with me I have my trusty co-host Joker.
Hey guys.
Hi, dude. And we have another special guest, a person who has been a great inspiration to me and to many people in the world, I guess. A person that is very familiar to many thanks to the amazing podcast that he's been on, thanks to his own channel that he has created. So, yeah, without further ado, welcome, Mr. Skari.
Hello, thanks for having me on. You are too kind to an ancient Archon like myself.
We're
Ancient,
super excited, and it's humbling to have you.
yeah, exactly, and ancient. I won't dispute that because I've
It's all the
watched your
wrinkles from like
No.
many years of fighting. You see,
and the scars.
and scars. Yeah.
Yeah, as I said in the pre-show conversation, I've been watching your videos since 2014. So for me, that is ancient. That's when I started hobbying in general. So for me, that's since the beginning of Warhammer 40k time. So
Well, you're too kind. I love the podcast, by the way. I've been ever since you started the podcast. I love getting a podcast on this side of the world from, that side of the world.
Yeah,
Because a lot of the times there's either the language barriers or there's not really a lot of content that gets made or that I haven't really seen until your podcast starting kind of shining a light on a lot of the like the WTC style stuff and a lot of the like scene of from like that European scene that you get to cover that we don't get to see a lot on this side.
yeah, that is the idea basically. We do realize that the Polish people have maybe our scene isn't big, but it's quite powerful. Like if you think of the WTC or ETC history, Polish people or the Polish team has usually been up there at the top somewhere. So and the Polish players are really experienced and they are a threat, so to say, in that competition. So yeah, so we figured why not talk about it. But today we meet to tackle a different topic. A topic that is, I guess, taboo to many. Not many people want to talk about it. Not many people want to open about it because it's very private, very intimate. I would even say. Many people feel that if they open up about this topic, they might get misunderstood, so they don't even start. So the topic is hobby burnout. Some of you, the people who follow us, who follow our Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, will know that we've created a survey and we've asked you and people on the internet, on Polish Discord, on some forums, on some Facebook groups to contribute to the survey and to let us know if they suffer from or have suffered from hobby burnout, how they've tackled it, have they managed to beat it, or maybe if they have never suffered from it, what they've been doing to actually avoid it. So the idea is to discuss it, and yeah, I have the two amazing gentlemen here who have been an inspiration. Skari, you've been a role model for all those years. You've managed to stuck to a single army, which for me is something that I wasn't able to achieve, and I changed armies plenty of times. So yeah, it's important for me to listen what you have to say about hobby burnout. And then Joker is probably the second out of the three people that I admire. Joker is the second person that I admire because he is so full of positive energy and so full of initiatives and ideas on how to make this hobby run and how to keep our community active, that I would like to hear from him about his ideas, his initiatives, and so on. And the third person probably would be Adam Camilleri, who, as I said before, is like a ball of energy, positive energy. And if you listen to him, you immediately want to put models on the table and just start playing. So yeah, I'm happy to have you. But before we get into that topic, Skari, you have just finished a 2-day event, right? A 2-day tournament that you've participated in. Can you tell us something about it? Are you tired? What have you played? What have you taken? Did the list work? What place have you, or how have you placed? Tell us all about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward, first of all, to talk about this topic, which I think is very important. Not just this topic in general, but mental health, I think, is a very important topic that a lot of us have to deal with, and we have our own struggles, and it's good to have conversations about, you know, how things affect us. As for the tournament this weekend, I went to a major tournament. It was, I think, 108 players. The first major event that we've had in Canada, in Toronto, in 2 years since the onset of COVID. So it was a big deal, and we had a lot of players. We had a lot of players come down. I think Robert Olofsson from Sweden came down too. One of the WTC players from the Swedish team came down. Yeah, so you know, there was an international presence of people coming to play, and there was you know, we had Brad Chester, who's currently #1 ranked ITC, to take a train to come up to Canada to play, and that was really, really fun. I took a Drukhari list. Surprise, surprise. I ran a real space raid detachment. I'm finding real space raids to be really fun and very versatile. And I ran like Artists of the Flesh, which is the Coven. I ran Red Grief as my witch cult instead of Cult of Strife, which threw a lot of people off, and Blackheart for my Cabal. And I ran Talos, I ran Kronos, I ran some Hellions and Reaver jet bikes and some witches and racks and just a little bit of everything. And I did well. I went 5-1 out of 6 rounds. You know, this is a win-loss format, so it was win path instead of battle points. Which means that like you were playing people who lost or who won the same amount of games at the same point in time than you, right? So if you had lost your first game, you were going to be paired up against someone who lost their first game. If you lost your third game, you're going to be paired up against someone who lost their third game. So in terms of win-loss path. And there were 2 undefeated players at the top. We had Brad Chester taking top general. And we have Bruno, a fellow member of Team Canada, placing in second. However, he won best overall, which was the largest event award at the event. It was 1,000 Canadian dollars in cash that was handed out to the winner. So congratulations to him, fellow Team Canada member, doing us proud, which was really awesome.
Nice.
Yeah. You know, so going into the event itself, of course, we did have Sergey. Sergey with his Grey Knights came in 3rd, and I was in 4th place. So I came in 4th generalship. One of my goals was to podium in overall, so I've been working a lot on my painting lately. I came in 3rd best overall, so I was extremely ecstatic about that. That was probably the highlight of my weekend. I did also win best Xenos, which was awesome too. So it was an all-round fantastic weekend, and it was just great to finally get to see people I haven't seen in 2 years and just, you know, see them face to face, and, you know, and just sit and chat. And then afterwards, you know, we went out to dinner, and it was just a very fulfilling feeling, like there was something missing in my life for 2 years. And I was able to get it back this weekend. So I don't feel tired after 2 days. I felt tired after the 4 games on day 1, but I feel refreshed. Like I want to do it again next weekend. That's how I feel. But yeah, that's it. Just in general, that was the weekend. It was fantastic. It was awesome. And like we had Team Canada has 16 players and a coach on the roster, and we had 15 of the 16 players at that event, all placing in the top 25 or something. So it was really nice to see the team go out and give a really strong running and get some good practice. And I'm really excited to be a part of it. It was just awesome.
Nice. Sounds really nice. And congrats on your 3rd place overall finish.
Third place. Yes.
I'd just like to say, I think I had similar feelings that you've just mentioned about meeting with the people again when I went a month ago to the Polish Team Championships. The game was almost not as important as meeting all of these people after a 2-year break and just having those interactions based around Warhammer, of course, but still, yeah, that was really refreshing, one could say. which in a way relates to the topic of tackling burnout. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. I'd just like to ask one thing regarding the event. What factions did the players placed first and second play?
So in first, like in ITC, so the battle in the BCP app, so general shit. If we're looking at win-loss, Brad Chester went 6-0 with his Drukhari, so he won 6. That was the only game I lost, was to Brad Chester. That's actually a streamed game that you can go watch on the Stutter Scrub Twitch page or YouTube channel.
Okay.
If you're gonna go watch that game. Bruno, he won with a Harlequin and Eldari army. He went 6-0 as well.
Oh wow!
So he was running just fusion boats and night spinners and support weapon platforms. So a very just heavy out of line of sight shooting army with the troop masters and a bunch of fusion boats. Still did really well there. And then Sergey was went 5-1 with Grey Knights, and I went 5-1 with my Drukhari. We also had a 5-1 Blood Angel player, Sam. We had another Dark Eldar player go 5-1, and then Mechanicus, Imperium, more Drukhari, High Fleet, Kraken. So the top 10, that was the top 10 at the event.
Cool. If we have time, I'd love to know your opinion about how the win-loss system compares to WTC, but that's if we have time, as it's not the topic of today.
Absolutely, we can talk about it at any point. I think there are merits to both. The differential system, which is the 20-0 system we use at the team events, and of course the battle point / win-loss style that is a lot more popular on this side of the ocean.
Right. I also have a question because I listened to the Thursday show from, I think, Frontline Gaming, where Paul Murphy and Adam Camilleri were discussing this upcoming tournament. And Adam was talking about your list, and he said that he has absolutely no idea how it works. So I know that I understand that you probably don't want to go into all the intricacies of your list, and you want to keep it to yourself.
Oh,
but
not
were
at
there
all.
any?
I
okay.
like sharing. I feel like there's no point in keeping it all too secret. Like, you have your tricks, but we're one big community. We all get better by all learning together.
That's true. But were there any, standout units that your go-to units, let's say, that you're definitely bringing to the next tournament?
The Talus. Yeah, the Talus. Artisans of the Flesh Talus. Those things are just monstrous. They're fantastic. The damage reduction combined with heat lances, combined with the Ichor injectors, being able to get in a real space raid, so you get reroll hits with an Archon, reroll ones to hit. It's just really good into the meta right now, killing AdMech chickens and AdMech planes and buggies and like other Dark Eldar like vehicles or monsters. So all in all, it's probably my best unit in the entire tournament.
And isn't speed an issue for them?
Not once because it was player placed terrain, so it was very easy to sort of like set up staging areas for them. Move them up into a staging area and then either move out and fire and fade and things like that, or just advance them and get them into combat if I really wanted them to go fast.
Okay, that's really cool. So, yep, Joker, if you have any questions about the army and so on, we can leave it till the end, or
agreed.
Yeah. So I guess we can jump into the topic. I mean, we've already covered a tournament that you've gone to. I already said that, Skari, that you are and have been my inspiration for a longer while. But can you tell us maybe something about yourself for all those people, for example, in Poland, that might have not heard of you, or people around the world that might not be familiar with what you do exactly?
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm Skari, or Rizvan, which is my real name, Rizvan. I'm 34 years old, and I've been playing games for something like 23 years. And I've been playing 40k for 23 years. My original army was Black Templars. So I've been very excited about the new Black Templar book. Just saying. But I've been playing Dark Eldar for, I want to say, a good 15 to 17 years or so. And it's been pretty much exclusively Dark Eldar until recently. I've been doing some work with Mini Wargaming. I do some filming with them and some battle reports and campaigns. And I jumped into content creation full time. So it's my job. This is what I do for a living. 3 years ago. So I do videos on YouTube. I do live streams on Twitch, hobby streams. I run a Patreon, of course, and you know, my goal is basically to travel, bring the gaming community together. It's one of my biggest aims, and I try to do that with like a very positive light on things. I'm a member of the Canadian national team, and I've been to the WTC, well, the ETC twice, now the WTC, once we get to go. So let's just say I enjoy playing games of dice and meeting people. And, you know, that makes the world go round for me.
That's fantastic. That's exactly, you know, why I think you're the right person in the right place right now for us. Because, yeah, I wanted us to touch upon the topic of hobby burnout. I won't hide it. I wanted to talk about this topic because I treat it very personally, and burnout is something that I have suffered for the last year. We started doing the podcast a year, well, like more than a year ago. We reached 9 episodes, and then for me, you know, a breakdown came, so to say. I probably was too much into the hobby, like in different aspects. So, you know, I was like listening to podcasts, reading about it. I came to this point where I was building like 6 or 7 lists in in Battlescribe a day, just as form of entertainment and so on. But then I couldn't see the results on the table with the army that I picked, and I just sort of gave up. Like I couldn't make my army work. The 9th edition didn't help. I couldn't, you know, wrap my brain around the new mission system, and so on. And it was just easier to give up, I think, back then. So a year has passed. I started talking to Joker and to Alice, whose fantastic models you might have seen on our Instagram, and some other people, and they somehow grabbed me and dragged me back into the hobby, and I'm happy to be back with new energy and so on. But you know, I feel I've looked around and I see that many of the friends that I used to play with are gone. They gave up for one reason or another. So I realized that I'm not the only case that has suffered from the same thing. And I felt, okay, let's talk about it. Let's make an episode about it. Let's make a survey to have some data behind our claims and so on. And that maybe I can have some awesome people on to discuss the results. And here we are. So that's a bit of a lengthy intro. So yeah, maybe to continue with that intro, Skari, have you ever experienced something like that? Have you ever, in your, you said 24 years, is that correct?
23 or so,
20,
yeah,
yeah.
since I was like 11 or something like that.
So that's a long time. That's the maturity of your life, basically. In that time, have you had those moments of feeling down, those moments of, I don't know, being on the verge of maybe quitting it or something like this? Has that happened? And you know, how have you tackled those situations?
So I vividly remember the first time I wanted to quit the game, which was very early on when I played in the game. I went to one of my first tournaments, and I was very young then, and I had a unpleasant game at the event, and that sort of left a very sour taste in my mouth. And so I shelved Warhammer for a little bit because I was just so like disillusioned, if that makes sense, at sort of like the interaction. Like I just felt, you know, that it was not a fun experience. However, I used that fueled me to learn the rules better than anyone would ever learn the rules. So that I would never have somebody like catch me out in that sort of like, oh no, this is the rule, and kind of like just take advantage of my we call it angle shooting in the in the ITC code of conduct now. But I vowed that I would know my opponent's rules better than they knew their own rules, and so that just really helped me learn how to play the game a lot better. So it was more of a motivator rather than but that was like the first time. I just went home and I was like, that was the worst game I've ever played, and I don't want to play this anymore. And then over the years, it's just been in waves. I feel like it definitely comes to a point especially when I was a part of like a gaming group. We had I've been a part of a variety of different gaming groups, and when we would play 40K all the time, every week, all week long, every gaming day, and the aim of those games was simply to practice and get ready for the next tournament, and then we'd all go to the next tournament, we play, and then we tweak our lists, and then practice for the next tournament. Every 6 months or so, the whole group would sort of burn out. And then it was just nobody wanted to play 40K because everybody would be like, I'm done. I can't play another game of Warhammer 40,000 anymore. So we ended up mainly playing different games, in terms of we pick up Warhammer Fantasy or Necromunda or Mordheim, for example, or we'd play board games instead. But it wouldn't be long before the sort of bug hit again and we'd start playing 40K again. So it usually didn't last too long, but it was about supplementing what we did with other games that we enjoyed long enough to sort of let the creative juices flow again for the game that we played.
Right. Joker, I think you are on the completely opposite end of the spectrum, because although we haven't really spoken about that in the past very much, I feel like you are that kind of a person who never suffers from burnout at all. As I said in the introduction, there is so much energy, so many initiatives in you. So is that a correct assumption that you just don't burn out?
I don't know if it's the correct assumption. I think maybe saying that I haven't burned out yet would be a better take on it. But to be honest, I did have a bit of a crisis at the beginning of the year when we've still had pretty rigid COVID restrictions and the local community was, obviously metaphorically speaking, dead. Yeah, so that was a bit of a tough time, but what I did, I just focused on other parts of the hobby and tried to, just take it in on a bit of a more individual level. So not exactly playing the game, but I don't know, painting, putting my stuff together, building the models, etc. I did embark on a new year, new army challenge, so to speak, which is where I picked up Drukhari, and obviously no one believes me that I picked it up before the ridiculously powerful codex dropped. And yeah, I think that's it really. But you're right, before that I can't recall a time that I would say I felt burnt out. Sometimes felt down or demotivated, frustrated, yes, surely, but to drop it completely, not really.
Right. So I'm going to use you in this podcast to in the part where we get to solutions and working around burnout, because as I said, there are so many initiatives that you have been involved in that I think that could be an inspiration to all the listeners. But yeah, let's start from the beginning. So I let the survey run for a couple of days. Officially, in the stats that I have sent you, we have 112 people who responded. Some of the questions there were 6 questions. Some of the questions were very, I would say, closed with simple answers. The majority of them were either multiple choice or open-ended, and I gave the people the possibility to write their own comments in there as well. And this is the meat of the survey. Really interesting answers in there. So the idea is, I think we should go through each question and just pick out the most interesting things and give our take on the topic that the question pertains to, and I hope that is fine with you. So I would like to use this occasion as well to thank all the people who participated in the survey, because I know the topic is not easy. I know it is not easy to open up. I made sure that this survey is anonymous, but still to open up and give all the details that you have given is an amazing thing. So I thank you. And I think I'll keep the survey open for a bit longer, like for a couple more days after this is published, so people can still contribute. And then I'm going to close it. I'm going to publish the results, on our Facebook, on Instagram, and so on, so people can see the graphs. They can see that maybe if they do suffer from burnout, they are not alone. And hopefully the ideas that we present today will help them also do away with burnout, whether it's there or whether it's on the way. So yeah, question number one, nothing complicated here. This was just a basic question about which age group you are in. And I just wanted to find out, in which sort of bracket the people are. And we have from 112 people who responded to that question, a whopping 62.5% are in the 25 to 34 age group, followed by 22% of 35 to 44. And then the third group is with about 9%, 18 between 24. I don't know if there is a lot that we can say or comment about this, apart from the fact that this age group is active people who work, who have just started families, I guess, which might point to some of the reasons why people suffer from burnout, because one of the common reasons that we are going to get to in the second question are that people don't have enough time to hobby, to do what they love, to do what they want, because they have other commitments, chores to do. So in this age group, I think this is the most common thing. Anything that you want to add, guys, or can we jump to the second question?
Yeah, I think that's a good assumption to make based on the age groups. I feel that really encapsulates, the general age groups of people who can even afford the hobby and play a game that is expensive and time consuming as well, right? Considering that a game is 3 hours or whatnot, you have to be able to afford the time and the either painting or getting your army commissioned, or the time to do the hobby itself. So it's a combination of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's just, I think, your average Warhammer player that falls in that age group.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, correct. So no surprises there. I would really say with the survey, but still a nice little small question to set the stage for what's to come. Question two. And in question two, I've asked, and I quote, have you ever felt burnout with regards to Warhammer 40,000? And now here, out of the 112 people who participated, 91 persons, so 82% of people who responded gave a definite yes. So 91% of people said that there was a time in their life when they felt burnout, and some of the people even felt like giving us some more details on it. So first of all, are you guys surprised by this number? 82% of respondents suffering burnout. Joker, I'll start with you because did you think that this is such a common issue?
I'm going to sound a bit pessimistic here, but I'm not surprised purely because I think if someone decided to actually take part in the survey, it's probably because they wanted to, anonymously share that this is something they have experienced. So I'd base it purely on that reason.
Yeah, okay, it's hard to disagree. True, but also, the 10% of people who responded apparently came here to say no. They came here to say that they haven't suffered from burnout, and then we've given those people a chance to say how they managed to stay away from burnout in question 6, which we will get to eventually. But yeah, Skari, again, maybe a naive question, but that's a huge number, a huge amount of people suffered from it. Have you met people in the past who suffered from burnout? Is it common in your community or in the communities that you have, met in the past?
I think it's not unusual to suffer from burnout with anything, really. Considering the age group of the people who took the survey, when you either navigating a job or a career or starting a family or, trying to, establish a life or buy a house or, you're going to be going through a lot of stressors, right? And with the rise of sort of like creation of content or like the sort of like social media aspect of our hobby community as well, I feel like there's been a lot of pressure put on performance, on painting skill, on a variety of different factors that then add on to that hobby thing, right? Where you might not be the best painter, but you don't really want to show off your models because all the models you see on these painting tutorials are just like, just so they just look unattainable that it sort of like makes you feel all depressed that you're never going to get to that spot or whatnot. And I think that it's a combination of feeling burnout, and I feel that no matter what you do, there's going to come a time where you're stressed, you know what I mean? Like you feel that stress, and one of the easiest things to stop doing is to stop doing a hobby. Yeah, it's very easy to sort of like get into a rut and just binge watch Netflix instead of painting or building or or going to a tournament on the weekend or things like that. And I feel I'm not surprised to see a high percentage of people having said that they suffer from some sort of burnout at some point.
Yeah, and what you said about different aspects of life and that you can suffer burnout in them really resonates with me strongly, especially that I feel, and that was also a thought that I had about a year ago. Something that really annoyed me was that I felt at some point by looking at Facebook posts of different people and so on that you no longer can just do a hobby. You no longer can just collect models, or you can no longer, run, no longer go cycling. You have to do it like to the extreme. So people don't run anymore. They go and run in Runmageddon or Tough Mudder or something like that. It has to be an extreme challenge. People don't ride a bike. They just go and do some crazy mountain biking on the verge of dying sort of racing. And in our hobby, uh, you have to be extremely competitive to mean something. Or when you go to Reddit and you see all those posts where people go like, "Oh, my first painted model ever," and then you see like this amazingly painted, dry
Yeah.
brushed, and model. That's just demotivating to an extent.
Yeah, I've suffered that on the painting bit many times. But yeah, we'll see if we get to that. And I think what Skari said before is very true, and that's also what I think I wanted to say, is that burnout is probably inevitable at some point. And well, then it's just a matter if you want to, if you manage to deal with it, or if you just drop something completely. But
Yeah, 100%. I think it's one of those things where it's important to sort of manage one's expectations and one's specific goals. You have to sometimes that self-reflection of what do you want to get out of the things that you do for fun is so important. And it's one of the best tools that one has to avoid getting to that point of burnout, right? It's why do you do what you do, right? And it's not easy to kind of take a step back and reflect on those things a lot of the times, but I feel it is very important. And it's also important to sort of like talk to someone about it, especially if it's really weighing on you to the point where you're like, I've invested 10 years of my life playing this game. I've painted these armies, and I'm going to sell it all and stop doing it cold turkey, just because I'm just so stressed about it or whatever. That's not healthy. Or I don't feel like it is. Yeah. It's like, talk to someone about it, and before you make any sort of like rash decisions and then feel sad about it, a year later when you're like, I should have never sold that army, that sort of thing. So it's interesting to see that it's as high as 82% of the people who took the survey, and I'm curious to hear more stories. If anybody has stories, it'd be cool to have more of a conversation about it, to kind of like have a conversation about it.
Absolutely, and I think I can't speak for everyone, of course, but both Joke and myself, we work in the same company. We work in a big corporation, and corporations have this tendency to react to what is going on around them, and COVID has hit companies like this one to an extent. And our HR department, for example, has started a conversation around mental health during COVID, and they highlighted to the people leaders within the company and so on, that they should be extremely careful about the mental state of their people during COVID, especially during COVID, because sitting at home and so on also contributes to what we are talking about, to burnout, to feeling sadness, feeling like something that I remember I attended a training where they spoke about something called anhedonia, which is like an inability for you to feel joy out of things, which is something that I also feel I felt a year ago. At some point, I just stopped being interested in things. I stopped feeling the joy of doing anything Warhammer related, or actually, now that I think about it, it was I stopped feeling joy out of anything. So we can use this as an opportunity, for our listeners to warn our listeners to start observing themselves, start observing their bodies, their mental state. If you felt down for a longer while, if you felt tension or distress or lack of interest or fear, even, maybe it's time to get some help, or at least open up to someone. I don't say that you have to go to a professional. That's also a taboo. But you'll know when it's time. But just find a friendly soul that you can open up to, and it could change the entire situation. So just a hint right there before we get to other hints. Be careful about your mental health, everyone, because it's a very sensitive thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's important to just state.
Yep, and one of the answers to this question, that because there were two answers, like yes and no, and then I left that open space for people to open up if they wanted. And one of the answers, I feel, Skari, that I will want to ask you about this. Someone wrote, the level of emotional and mental fatigue I feel after a 5-round 2-day tournament normally leaves me not wanting to play games for 3 to 5 days afterwards. Is this something that you would agree to? Is this something that you feel as well from time to time?
For me personally, I think that's a no for me. I've always been the kind of person who could go to a 3-round tournament, then we'd all go back to hang out and play like a board game, and I wanted to play more Warhammer. So I think I might just be a freak of nature in that sense. However, after, and that's just like a normal tournament, but 6, right, like this weekend went 6 rounds, and last night I wouldn't want to play another game, but I could play today. If I would totally film a battle report right now. Like it's just a normal thing for me to do to pass the time.
Okay, Joker, how about you? When you go to a tournament, your legs hurt, your brain is probably leaking through your ear, and so on. Do you feel? Is it the same for you? Could you just pick up the minis and dice and play on another day, or do you need a longer break?
I think I've been on both sides of the spectrum, to be honest. I think that when the first time I organized our local GT, the Heresy, and not only was I the TO, I also played at that event. After that finished, I felt like I'm not gonna play Warhammer for the next 2 months. But then, yeah, like a month ago, when I went to the team championships, I mean, we came back and I was ready to go. If I could, I'd just go and play Warhammer the next day. But yeah, obviously, you have to go to work, unfortunately. At
Yeah.
least some of us do.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, again, as you said, both sides of the spectrum. There have been, especially at the beginning, in like 2014, 2015, that was the 7th edition, and I was, ecstatic to start. I started with the orcs. They didn't work out for me just because I think the orcs were completely at the bottom of the tier list of armies back then, and they didn't play at all. But also, I was a horrible player, so probably the mixture of that. And then I had the brilliant idea to switch to a different army, the aesthetics of which I loved, which was Drukhari, which was, if orcs were at the bottom, Drukhari were just above them, I think, back in those days. That was before like Necron the Curians and all that horrible Bark Stars and all that jazz. So I remember I had a streak of 27 losses with my Drukhari, and the last like 5 biggest losses were when I went to the first 3-city heresy. It was exactly, that time when people said, "Oh, come to this big tournament, come to the master." We call it the Master Series tournament. So come to the Master Series tournament. You'll meet people. You'll enjoy it. It's gonna be fun. Mm-mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm. That was probably the saddest experience of my hobbying time ever, because I got absolutely destroyed by my opponents. I met some toxic players at that event as well, and I came back home and I just felt like I need to sell the army immediately and just go into something else because there's no hope for that. So this, but the next army I picked up was Space Wolves. I went to a small patrol tournament, and I won 2 games. Those were my first 2 games that I won, and I was again ecstatic about the hobby. So it all came back. I just needed a little bit of time after that dreadful streak of losses. So yeah, and I think we can risk and claim that the majority of us have been both here and there. Question 3, and I think this is where we get to the sort of most interesting aspects of the survey. What are the most common reasons for you feeling burnout? And we have one answer that is dominating here. We have 63 respondents, so 60% of the entire group claiming that the reason is power creep or meta shift.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been, Skari, has this affected you in any way in the past?
I feel like I'm like the odd one out when it comes to this sort of thing, because I've been playing for so long. Maybe earlier when I was playing, because I've been playing for so long and my collection is so like large for the one faction that I play. When the power creeps or the meta shifts, I tend to have something in my collection that I can revert to or use that sort of offsets what the meta is kind of shifting to at the moment. And so I feel like this affects people the most when they are like, they have a list, they're like, I want to build it, it seems good. And then by the time they finish building that specific list, the meta has shifted. And so all the work and effort into building, collecting, and painting these models has sort of like, there's either an FAQ that invalidates the unit choices that they made, or they make something else very powerful that makes their army, that invalidates their army by just killing it off the table really fast or something like that. And so I feel it could be disheartening to, try and constantly keep up with the changes in the game, while, having limited time and a limited budget, and, that's stuff that can really just be frustrating to try and keep up. A lot of times it's called like pay to win or whatever, right? Where like, if you want to keep up with the meta, Games Workshop is a company. They're selling miniatures, they're selling models. Are they going to make the new fancy model have better rules than other stuff? More than likely. You know, they're still a business. So it's, you know, it's about curbing that expectation, and I can definitely see how it can be disheartening to people. I guess I'm just a glutton for punishment in that way, where I see it as a challenge to take like the most obscure thing in my codex and make it work against the meta. But not everybody wants to do that. They just want to like put an army on the table that they feel is fun and like does well, or you just want to go crush people, and that's completely fine too. But then the meta shifts on you, and there's 3 FAQs and an addendum and this thing, and then like you have to read 3 pages, and guess what? Your codex is invalidated as soon as it like gets published or whatever, you know, and that can be very confusing for people and demoralizing.
True. Joker?
Yeah, I have to agree to an extent, because too many times I've been reading new rules that were coming out and also felt disheartened just looking and not believing what I'm reading. Wow, this is just totally going to wipe my factions off the board or something. But then at the end of the day, the biggest amount of games you play locally. And usually, at least in my experience, that has been manageable. So the power creep didn't hit that hard. The guys in our area don't do, I don't know, hype buying the most powerful stuff. It's usually people sticking to 1 or 2 factions they own. So after some initial demotivating thoughts, it's usually manageable and not that much of an issue as it might seem at first.
Yeah, you know, when people say that the main reason is power creep, I tend to agree, and I wonder if GW is aware of that. You know, so many people are disheartened, unhappy, disappointed with the changes. I mean, I read into the comments that people left, and the great majority of them is that, you know, 9th edition launched 15 months ago. My army still does not have a codex, and its 8th edition rules transitioned to 9th edition extremely poorly. So there are people whose armies are, you know, the bottom 4, for example, just because they haven't received the book yet. And on one hand, people say that the GWs releases things too fast, but there are also people who say that they release things too slow and their army hasn't been catered for properly. You know, people want to use armies that they like, but in the comments I see multiple answers that say, you know, having to use the armies that compete rather than the armies I enjoy, which is probably related to the previous comment that I read out. So yeah, I think, I mean, I know I haven't ever been able to keep up with the power creep properly. I usually, when I stepped into, like in the 8th edition, I stepped into orcs, for example, and I picked up orcs too late, because I picked up orcs back when the Luta bombs were neutered, or well, at least, yeah, made worse. So they did
let me stop you
Nerfed.
at this
nerf.
point.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Jesus.
that's the word. Let me stop you here. You picked them up at the exact right moment. That's what I meant by hype buying. So you didn't just go out and get 35 looters to play a ridiculous list. You jumped in when this ridiculous combo was nerfed, and it was a bit more healthy in that regard. So you kind of avoided that demotivating, in a way, FAQ that would have left you feeling down and just thinking, oh no, I can't keep up with the rules. I wasted, I don't know, money, resource, what have you.
So on one hand, yes, but on the other hand, you know, I wanted to be part of that group, let's say, you know, who benefited from
I could
stronger
abuse them
rules at
for
the beginning.
4 weeks.
Well, yeah, once in a lifetime I could abuse something, but I never got to. I bought them too late. So they never were as strong afterward.
I do feel like I've got you beat. I had a local player bought was it 15 biovores, and they arrived the Wednesday, and the Saturday the rule of 3 was introduced.
Oh my god. So I think we have a similar story in our like local community where there was a guy who like started buying a lot of custodies, and then
Jet bikes.
jet bikes, yes, and it was like back then when they were like the shit, and he sent them to a local painter to paint. When they came back, it was too late. They were no longer meta, and he never got to play them. They sit on his shelf up to now. He uses them probably now, but he never got the proper strength from them that they had
Yeah.
back when they were
Beautifully
released.
painted 20-ish Custodes jet bikes that never saw proper tournament play.
Yep. So that's exactly what people comment about, with power creep. I think this is it. And it's in line with what you said as well. People spend a lot of time, a lot of money, investing in their armies, and then a rule comes out or a new codex comes out that completely invalidates them. I had the same with Jukari. In 8th, the codex came out. I enjoyed them for a while. I remember I won a single tournament, and then I think the Knights codex came out, and I remember that as soon as that came out, my winning stopped. Like I couldn't handle Knights at all. I couldn't just work around them. Everyone around me could. So at the end of the day, probably that boils down to my poor skill. But back then, I felt like, oh my god, if it hadn't been for that codex, I probably would be in a better situation. And whether that's a correct assumption or not, I don't know. But I blamed it on power creep. Grey Knights. I bought Grey Knights at the end of 8th, and it was the same. I felt that it's maybe the right time to buy them, but then other codices came out. Space Marines got some buffs and so on, and suddenly my army didn't feel that strong anymore. Like the Paladin bombs that I really wanted to play suddenly were out of meta. Like, or you didn't use 2 of them. So I was always late, so to say, with my purchases. So yeah, so I can sign my name under that one as well.
And I'm reading through some of the responses. There are a lot of different reasons that we're seeing from the folks that answered the survey, right? You've got anything from the release rate of things all the way to not being able to find games in the system that you like. Being that for example, you're a narrative player that wants to play Crusade or just like pick up games to play, but most of the people in your community just play competitively all the time, and that can discourage people from playing, especially if they don't enjoy that aspect of the game, or being here a part of your national team and feeling that pressure of constantly doing well and needing to perform in order to maintain that standard, and so yeah, I guess it's something that you can take from this is whatever your reason is for feeling that way, it's inherently just a very human experience of like just getting to a point where you just like you reach your limit, if that makes sense. And for some people it's one thing will trigger it, and for other people something completely different will trigger it.
That's very true. Going down the list of answers that we have, the second one, as I mentioned earlier, pertaining to the age group of our responders, lack of time, be it due to work or due to family or any other reason. It's also in the like comments or responses that people gave that many people simply suffer from lack of time. And now I think it also can be a little bit demotivating when you go and listen, for example, to podcasts like, I don't know, Art of War or something, and you hear about people who get to play 9, 10 games a week, while there are people who are happy if they get to play 1 game a month. So probably, yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised that it's the second on the list, because we all suffer from lack of time. We are all having hectic lifetimes. But I wanted to
But
ask
then
you,
you look at the age group,
yeah,
right? Lack of time being, hey, guess what? Most of the people taking the survey, 25 to 35, right? Guess what you're doing that time? New career, family. Like your time is definitely precious.
true. Joker, I wanted to ask you, and this will probably, jump between questions a little bit, but how did you manage? You have a small child, and you have a job. As I said, we work in the same company. How do you manage to play pretty frequently, be a good dad, and be a good person at the work they do?
Well, I don't know if playing once, sometimes twice a week is a lot at this rate. You'd have to ask my daughter if I'm a good dad, so let's not jump to conclusions too fast. And what was the other one? Oh, work stuff. Yeah. Let's say that I'm good at work. At what I do, and in case someone from the company might be listening, I don't know really, but look, I mean, it's 11 p.m. and I'm doing a podcast on Warhammer, so I guess it's just the commitment and just how much can you motivate yourself to do various things. I mean, sometimes at this hour I sit down and start painting. Although if I start at 11 p.m., it very rarely happens because I'm just, I don't know, either tired or just not motivated enough, feeling a bit lazy. So yeah, lack of time, I can definitely get that, and it's all about how you manage time, how you how do I say this? How you agree your time off with other members of the family or people close to you. It's all about that relationship that you have and how you handle that. At
Yeah,
least
so
that's what
mhm.
I think. And I mean, okay, I'll say it, but working from home is very helpful in that regard. I might glue a couple of guys sometimes during working hours. I shouldn't be saying that. So yeah,
During lunch.
that's yeah, exactly. Paid break time, unpaid break time. I meant.
Yep,
Yep.
obviously.
Yep.
All right. And do you guys have, I don't know, any sort of like a contract with with members of your family, like with your wives, that, because I remember when I started, especially, I had an allergic child that I needed to like allergic to everything. So I needed to spend a lot of time with my child, just watching if he's not swelling up after eating something. My wife was really nervous at that time. So, I really found it difficult to find time to play. And when I did, I figured that it's better to go to a tournament, even if I'm going to suck at it. It was better to go to a tournament that lasted a day, but allowed me to play 3 games, than to go to a single game that would probably eat up 3-4 hours. And so on. So, I mean, how do your families take your hobbies, for example, Skari? I understand that this
Well,
is something that
my hobby is
wins
like
you
my
bread.
job,
Hmm.
so I live and die by my schedule. So I've had to become very aware of time management. I come from a background where I did sales for 7 years before I started doing the hobby full time. In the meantime, I did videos, I did bat reps and things like that on and off. However, my career was just sales and business management and business ownership, and I was never home. And then on the weekends, I would go to tournaments. So that was terrible. But now I get to take my son to school. I get to see him when he comes home. And in between all that time, I schedule everything I need to do for work, which is also making videos or coaching clients or doing a variety of different things that I do with the hobby. And part of that is scheduling times for events, but I also make sure that I have dedicated times where I'm spending with family. And I think that time management has been crucial for me to make that work-life balance make sense, especially since I've got a studio at home, and it's very easy to get lost in work when it's just at home. And it's also a thing that I really enjoy. So I have to separate my work hobby and my just hobby for myself. You know, I don't film every game I play, right? I play Minecraft. You know, I just do little things that I don't necessarily share with the public because that's just me time or like hobby time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like if I do stuff that's like work time, I'm like filming a battle report or I'm, you know, writing up about, you know, an event that I went to or, you know, writing an article or taking pictures or doing a stream, you know, that's more work hobby. And then and it's taken me some time to learn how to separate the two. And they still mix up all the time, but I'm trying very hard to keep it compartmentalized that way.
Yeah, I'd imagine it must be, at least in the beginning, very challenging to be able to separate what's work and what's like hobby. Or I should have said work hobby and hobby. Especially when you start doing it full time. Yeah, probably from the outside it seems like a dream, but it must be. It definitely takes some time to work out. As for myself, it feels like I'm gonna go into marriage 101, and I don't think I'm the best suited person to be doing that. But it's just, you know, you need to communicate with people close to you, and you know that goes true for all parts of life. So you know, if I give enough notice to my wife that I know I want to go to a 2-day event, or I want to hobby in the evening, paint the models, or go out for a game, and as long as I remember that she also needs you know, time away from the house from from the two babies she's having, so myself and our daughter, you know, I think it's manageable. But you know, we're all human beings, and we just need to respect each other and communicate. I think it's as simple as that. Even if it sounds simple, I think it just is simple. Or maybe I'm a lucky man and have a really supportive wife, and that's it.
I think, you know, that's something that takes time to work out, and I see it on my own example. I At the beginning, as I said, I had very little time for hobbying. I bought my first minis in order to paint them, not to play. But then I got absolutely absorbed into playing, and I was, you know, trying to figure out a way how to go and play and participate in that tournament. That was a way around it, so to say. My wife at the beginning was simply against it, just because, you know, it was like time not with the family, time not helping her with the child and so on, and that's
Yeah.
fair.
Mhm.
Pretty soon, I realized that in order to make it work, we need to start sort of trading time, which
Yeah.
meant I go somewhere for 4 hours, she goes somewhere for 4 hours. I stay with the child. You know, that way it was fair and square. That way she could get the rest she needed. And then this also contributed towards something else. I remember not so long ago we had a conversation in one of our chats locally about a guy who's sorry, there was a guy who said I would like to buy like a display shelf, glass display shelf with light inside to put my minis in there so that people could see that I play, but my wife will never agree. And I remember that my response to that was, wait, be patient, work slowly towards that. Just because the same happened with my wife. I started convincing my wife that the hobby is the thing that makes me, you know, rested, that gives me pleasure. It took a couple of years for her to see that it's not just a whimsical thing, that I'm not spending money because I just want to spend money. I'm actually spending money because I love what I do. That there are more and more minis. They are painted. They look great. I go to tournaments. I have fun. But then I'm also fair towards her because I allow her to do the things that she wants. And after several years, we worked out this consensus where I now can go to tournaments and like foreign tournaments. We went to Prague 2 years ago with Joker and a bunch of our guys. And I didn't really even have a problem convincing her. It was just, can I go? Sure, go. Just, you know, in the future, give me a day or two where I can have some time off as well. And it's just that you just need to work them out. And sooner or later, if your spouse is not supportive, they will become supportive just by seeing that you're dedicated and committed to the hobby. So that maybe that's not like a a eureka sort of piece of advice, but something that has worked, I feel, for the three of us in this very podcast right now.
We need to start a Patreon. Marriage counseling 101.
Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. All right, just a couple of things that I wanted to highlight because I want to move on with the questions, but also to respect the people who devoted their time to answer. One of the things that I noticed in this in the answers to this survey, um, there are things like peer pressure and bad results at tournaments, and I would connect that also with like having too high expectations towards yourself. Now, I know about myself that this is absolutely something that I have done to myself. Before I quit a year ago, like the last 15 games that I played, when I went to play, even with friends, those games had to be a win.
Yeah.
I had the feeling that I play once a week, like on a Sunday evening or something. It should be quality time. Quality comes from winning. So I convinced myself that, I have to win and I have to show everyone that I am winning. We had a chat room in which we discussed our games, and if I lost, everyone could see. So I felt like, I'm naked and I lost a game that I should have won, and so on. So this all started sort of caving in at some point. But yeah, having too high expectations, is that something that you have to work with? I don't know, Skari, have you ever suffered from that?
Well, there's a lot of pressure, being national team, being like
Oh yeah.
a figurehead in the community, being like, doing coaching for playing the game. There's always that level of expectation, and it's very easy to get overwhelmed if you think about it too much. Like I've had losing streaks that have sort of like made me nervous, about what people would expect and things like that. But I think it's important to understand how you're feeling more than anything. And at the same time, a lot of the times it's about who do you surround yourself with, right? Like if you're surrounding yourself if you're surrounding yourself with very critical people, and you don't feel good, and you don't feel happy, then you might need to take stock of the people you surround yourself with, right? Like that's just,
Mm-hmm.
and that's like a hard truth. If you're, you tell me who your 5 closest friends are, and I'll tell you your future, is a very common sort of like saying that I've heard many a time, especially in business. If you want to be a successful person, you interact and network with successful people. If you want to be a nice person, you hang out with nice people. You want to be a critical, stressed out like person, you're going to hang out with critical, stressed out people. And so that's, I think, the hardest part is sort of like understanding how much that environment can affect like your thought process, especially when it comes to expectations, right? Because if you're feeling burnout frequently because of results, then the support system that you have around you probably doesn't like vibe well with what you need to succeed.
Yeah, you have to be very careful about, or put a lot of thought into who and what you surround yourself with. So, like, I, this recently, I consume podcasts like a crazy person, and recently I've listened to, I think the Art of War has this Unbroken series where they bring in like celebrity players who played a game or went to a tournament and lost. And I can't remember if it was that series exactly, but I know that they had Richard Siegler on, and Richard Siegler, who to many is like the prime example of a guy sort of appearing from nowhere and starting winning everything. You might assume, hearing those stories, that he just keeps on winning, and that's it. But the truth is, and Richard mentioned that in his story, that it wasn't at all like that. Sorry, it wasn't like that at all. So he came in with his army, and John Lennon served his ass to him many a time before he actually learned to play. So I guess the conclusion from that is, treat your games as a development, training. Try to take something away from every single game. It doesn't have to be a win. Lower your expectations a little bit. Like, if Richard Siegler started by losing to a bunch of people and drawing conclusions, you can do too. And after every single game, probably you'll be better.
I think it's important to note as well, with a lot of people who are in the spotlight and who seem to do very well, like they've probably lost more games than you've ever played.
If you take into account the amount of games they play on a daily or weekly basis,
100%,
absolutely.
right? Like or people look at me and go, "Skari, you're really good at the game. Like how do you do it?" It's like I've been playing for like 20 years. Like I've played more. I've lost more games. I've just lost more games than most people have ever played.
That's
right?
an important thing to say out loud, because I guess
just an ancient
Sorry, go on.
Archon.
I'm just an ancient Archon. I go into real space. Sometimes nobody comes back. Homunculus has to regrow me. Then I build up my army again. Go out. No, it's important to make that distinction. You can't always, and that's the thing. I think it's also, I'm gonna date myself, but I feel it's like a generational thing, where there's like a culture of like instant gratification.
Absolutely.
Right? And I feel that this is, it's like a slow burn where it like gets better as you age, like a fine wine, right? Like it's one of those things where you can get better at this game over time exponentially, right? If you have the right student mentality. And I think people get frustrated quickly when they don't see the results they want right away, and that can lead to like burnout, especially if your expectation is so high or you're very hard on yourself that you don't allow yourself to grow or to find different approaches to, say, a problem or a matchup that you find hard, or something that's just not jiving with you, and or it's just not clicking, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've locally had many discussions around how we bring new players in, and a lot of the ideas circled around toning down tournaments, if you will. And I mean, I just think that's just you need to manage expectations realistically. So if you've just started and you go to a tournament where people want to win, you just need to sometimes accept the fact that you're probably not going to get a good result, to put it lightly, and not let that fact dishearten you, because it's a learning process, right? It's a fairly hard to learn game. There's lots of rules you need to learn, and you just need to keep that in mind, and not let it get you down. Just keep it real.
Yeah, absolutely
Yeah.
true. I observe a certain trend in people. I mean, in our local community, but I like to think that this is also common abroad. That especially new players, they go to a tournament and they oftentimes leave that tournament saying that it was, a toxic experience and so on, because all the players came with like the baddest stuff from their codex. They brought like the meanest, composition of what their codex had to offer and so on. And it was an unpleasant experience because they came to enjoy themselves, brought the models, the units they like, and they were surprised because they got swept off the table. What Joker said, I echo that. You need to be realistic. At the end of the day, you came to a tournament. A tournament has a set of rules. The set of rules allows that army composition. Everyone is going to tweak their lists, their armies to that composition, and probably they are going to bring the meanest, baddest stuff they have in their books. So don't be surprised by it. learn from it. And I know that it's, it's a cliche. It's a thing that people don't really like to hear. But yes, this game has a learning curve. There are so many books, there are so many armies, there are so many updates and erratas. To learn all that is very, very difficult. But treat every single game as a learning experience, and you're going to come out stronger, thanks to that. So yeah, keep that in mind. That meeting those people who compete with really strong armies, um, this actually contributes to you being better, because you can watch them while they do it, and you can take something away from those games.
Yeah, 100%. And another thing that's important to note is, if you need a break, take a break. If you're not enjoying yourself, and you need to take a step back, it's healthy to stick it. I would recommend that you do, and then reassess and then jump back in. It's the same when I'm at the table and the game is not going my way, and I can tell that I'm starting to get tilted, and the game's just getting away from me. Little cues in my body language will tell me I need to step away from the table and take a deep breath. Sometimes you just need to take a break to reassess and come back fresh, and that's okay. I think that's completely okay.
Yeah, whether it's a shorter break to during gaming particular game that you're having, or even taking a longer break from the hobby. That's actually something that people we ask people, how do you handle your Warhammer 40k burnout? And in that comment section where people could comment, the great majority of people said, I do breaks. So sometimes it's a longer break, I think the maximum that someone mentioned was a couple of years, but there are also I've been gone for a year, I've been gone for a couple of months, and I think that's really important to step away, get some different perspective, and then observe the scene, find out if something has changed, if the rules, or I don't know, the missions have changed. One of the reasons for me dropping was I was really unhappy with the missions at the beginning of ninth, and I think with the GT pack now it's better. The missions are different. The missions are more enjoyable. So yeah, I wanted, and I said at the beginning that I'm going to use Joker here. You've initiated some of the initiatives, and this is in line with the answer that got the most answers to that question. So I focus on other aspects of the hobby. You, as far as I know, you do playing tutorials. You do you organized something we called laid back gaming. Can you tell us something about all those initiatives that you run that are not exactly tournament play, but something that helps other people in the hobby?
Yeah, I can try. I mean, so yeah, you've already mentioned the two of them. So lately, I've been doing some intros to trying to get more people into the hobby and into the let's say active part of community. So instead of people playing themselves in their basements, just maybe find some more faces to play against. Yeah, we've had a run of the nicely translated laid back gaming. So those were just events for people to come in and play however they like. And these events were specifically not tournaments, so there wasn't any ranking in them, etc. Because usually what we do locally is just play tournaments. So yeah, I totally get what one person wrote in regards to one of the answers to I think question number 2 it was, that not enough people in their given area play open play or narrative play. So that was a place where you could do that, or at least that was the idea behind it. What else? So yeah, and during the COVID break, I tried to activate the community members more on our Facebook group by either motivating them to post painting progress and doing small competitions, like just gathering photos of minis they've painted throughout a given month, making gallery out of it, and just clicking the like button on what you like, and then whoever gets the most likes just gets a blister at some point. And I think I still need to give those out because of how long we've had the relevant restrictions in. So I think that, and look, we're doing the podcast now again. So that's also something that's hobby related still with Warhammer. So I just try to consume every possible aspect of it because that's my feelings for 40k. So yeah, I might be the odd one out actually as well. So there you have it.
I don't think you are. I don't think you are because, and this is something that I wanted to send as a message to all our listeners. This hobby, I dropped for a year and I tried different things. I played World of Warcraft. I tried other computer games, but I actually I read a ton of books, but I haven't been able to find another hobby that would be so multifaceted. So that offered a plethora of different experiences still within one hobby. So as you said, Joker, you organize those playing tutorials. So you might think you're close to burnout. Maybe think of going to your local gaming store and offering them that on one day a week you are going to teach people to play. The shop can attract people so that they come and then you teach them how to play. And actually, I've seen a picture from our local gaming store where Joker is standing in the middle of a circle of like 15 people and they are all watching as he explains the rules. I find this amazing, an amazing way to attract new people to the hobby. That laid back gaming that I mentioned, but that our local gaming shop also organizes something like a bits flea market, like where people just come in and exchange bits and so on. You can meet new people.
Those are great, by the way. Like the trade like markets. Yeah. Yeah, of course. If you can meet and greet with people, those are always fun.
Yeah, and you can try more on that artistic part. So I mean, painting minis is just one thing, but you can make videos like Skari. He has the entire channel Skaredcast that you can I really feel like this needs a plug. So there you go. But go and watch and see. There are like also those painting hours where you just sit with people and paint and talk about things. So everyone can make a video. We are making a video or a podcast, as Joker said, but you can go even further. Like if you're getting burnout, bring something to the community. Organize an event, or like myself, like one of the biggest joys of participating in this hobby was when I heard that Joker wants to organize an event and he wanted to make it big and memorable. I offered that I'm gonna go and help with the sponsoring or sponsorship, and I took like I don't know 100 companies and I just emailed them. And you wouldn't believe how many of those 100 companies responded that yes, they want to support us. They want to send us either freebies or like gaming mats or something like that, and help us. And the events that we organized were usually huge successes, and the prize pools were so big that the tables we put our prizes on were like shaking because there were so many prizes. That's extremely rewarding. And if you haven't done that before, just go and try. You'll be surprised. You'll be surprised how much you can get out of it.
Yeah, exactly. I like running campaigns. I love running little crusade leagues. It's good to like shape it up. Rotate your game system every once in a while. Learn like Age of Sigmar or play like some Frostgrave or whatever the other games are that you play. Or do something that has nothing to do with the Warhammer, or read a book. Like a lot of the times, all I need to get back into the hobbying mood is get the lore and open a book and read about my favorite 40k character as they go around beating some skulls or something. That's always fun.
Yeah, I mean there is an amazing place in Poland that organizes tournaments where they do something that I haven't heard about anywhere else, which is you do a tournament with an army swap. So you go to a tournament, you face your opponent, you show him your list, and then you have to swap the armies and play his army against him, and he plays yours. And then you get to play the other way around. So you get to play with your army and beat him, hopefully. with your army while he plays his. That's something that is extremely refreshing because you get to play another army, you get a feel of another army. If you're like contemplating maybe getting a new army, but you don't get enough time to play test and check, that's one of the ways of actually play testing something. And the tournament, the formula is extremely fun because you have to help your opponent in a way. And in our pre podcast conversation, Skari, you mentioned spending some time on TTS. Is that correct? Have you
Yeah,
dabbled into this? Right. So
Yeah,
is that
we use it a
Go
lot
on.
for mainly coaching, like not coaching. Well, I use it for coaching as a tool because it's very easy to teach someone that's, in Australia or Europe or anywhere. We can go down and do scenarios and do a whole. So I use it more as a tool, and then of course for Team Canada, we definitely use it a lot for practice. And it's since Canada is so big, we've got us in Toronto, Montreal, or Ottawa, or even British Columbia, which is all the way on the other side of the continent. It's nice to be able to play games against people who you wouldn't get to just drive to and play a game with. So, we use it more as a tool like that.
Okay, so that sounds great. And that also, I've seen a comment in the survey. Someone complained that the hobby is expensive and they don't get to play test enough. They don't get to check their army before they buy it. They have to buy it and then play and test and find out that they are not enjoying the army. TTS might be the answer. It's actually the way it went from the beginning to now, how developed it is, how many models, armies, and so on are there, pieces of terrain, etc. It's really sophisticated. So you might want to give it a go, even if it's not perfect. It's there to test almost for free. So
Yeah.
maybe go and give it a look. I also cannot stress enough what I said earlier. Try and organize your own event. I mean, an event organizer often wins, at least in Poland, so there might be something to it. But also, organizing an event and a big event is an experience of its own. I think Joker can tell us something about it because you've organized a couple, right?
Yeah, I have. It's just that getting people together does have a nice ring to it. And if at least one person after the event says, you know what, thanks for putting this together, then that's enough for me.
Then there are definitely more than one persons who come to you and congratulate you and say thank you, because organizing an event is taxing on one hand, but on the other hand it also helps you develop. In our case, I worked in the company where I worked, and after a couple of tournaments I actually recommended Joker to the company, saying that he is an incredible organizer and so on, and that convinced my boss and he got the job. One of the things that's one of the reasons, but I like to think it was helpful. So you never know where you end up because of the hobby. And and the last bit, but also important, like we also mentioned, you might want to start recording videos or doing podcasts or something. Thanks to that, I'm talking to Skari. I spoke to Denise from the Normal Blogs. This gives you an opportunity to just meet amazing people. And if that's not refreshing, then I don't know what is. You never know. I listened to Skari, 8 years ago or 7 years ago, and I could only dream about having a word with him. Now we recorded the entire podcast with him. So yeah, try that maybe, because you'll never know what the results might be.
Yeah, it's okay. Like, it's so fun to have just big dreams down the line. You know what I mean? Like, you
Totally.
tell me 10 years ago that I was going to be frequently doing content with freaking mini wargaming, right? And that I literally drive down and film there pretty much every single week now. Like, that's awesome. You know what I mean? I would have never imagined that. So I agree. You never know what's going to happen.
All right, I think we need to come to the close with this because we're running out of time. Skari, I started sort of plugging your YouTube channel. Do you want to plug anything else that you do, or draw our listeners' attention to some other of your content.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. Well, first of all, thanks so much, everybody, for listening. And I hope you found this topic a brain buster topic, that made you think on your commute or your drive or at home or whatnot. And, let us know if you didn't take the survey. We'd like to know what you think as well about the topic at hand. As for me personally, I do a lot of stuff on YouTube. Skaredcast. I'm sure the links will be where you can find them. I did want to give a huge shout out to all the Patreons to my channel, because without them, I couldn't do what I do. So I just want to give them a huge shout out. They're the denizens of the Dark City, and they're amazing. And I respect all of them, and they're freaking awesome.
Yeah, totally. Joker, anything that you, any final words that you want to send out to our listeners?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the two of you that we sat here. I mean, everyone in their respective rooms. We've managed to discuss this topic, as we've had the idea for this episode for about a month. And oddly enough, other content creators have also dabbled on the topic. And like Skari said in the beginning, I think it's very important. And, mental health issues are probably not something that your average Warhammer player wants to open up on. Whereas I think it is very important, and the generation that we're part of is probably one in a transition period where we realize that opening up is okay, and you don't have to hold everything in yourself. And just to summarize the episode in a way, I think I'm not going to reinvent the wheel here, but yeah, just to tackle burnout, it's probably best to manage to set realistic expectations. Manage them on an iterational basis, and if you need to take a break, take a break. The hunger for the hobby will come back at some point. If it doesn't, and you find something else you enjoy, that's also fine. I mean, you do you. We're all different, and at the end of the day, it's a hobby, right? It needs to make you feel good in a way. If a hobby is frustrating for you, that it's not doing its job properly. And don't be afraid to speak up. Speak to your family, the people close to you, to your Warhammer mates if it's about Warhammer, and just work out from there, step by step.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
And yeah, last maybe piece of advice from me, if you don't want to give up the hobby, but and you want to develop in it, yet set yourself a plan, like time it, structure it, make it reasonable. So I remember there was a guy on Reddit, for example, who had a plan to paint, I don't know, about 100 minis, and he made it his challenge to post a painted mini like every day to Reddit. And this was sort of like motivating him, pushing him forward, because he has to post. And at the time when he finished posting, people were actually hungry for more, because he sort of like he built a following in that consistency and so on. And I think this is something that I can recommend to you as well. Try to be consistent within a realistic premise, and you'll see that it will pay off, and probably you'll manage to stay away from burnout. Thank you, Skari, for joining us at this time. I know that you have other commitments that you need to run to, so I don't let us, stop you from doing that. And Joker, as usual, it's been fantastic co-hosting with you. So thanks for your insights. As always, they're extremely valuable.
This has been great. Yeah, thank you so much. This has been absolutely fantastic. I'll be back anytime if you'll have me.
Careful what you wish for.
Especially if you want to talk about how Drukhari are the most balanced book that has ever been balanced in the history of balance.
Oh yeah, that deserves an episode. All right, thank you guys, and yeah, until next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.